Welcome to SplunkTalk, the only podcast that's all Splunk and no junk. I'm Burch, here with co-host,
I'm Hal.
and we have a great episode for you today. We're going to be talking to Joel Jacob, the principal product manager for IoT. Some really interesting stuff that we're going to talk about. Gets a little hands-on. But before I forget, this is season 2. Somehow we're still in season 2, episode 44. So with that, how has your week been?
My week's been all right.
Yeah. What do you got rocking on behind you? For the people listening in, Hal's got some pretty awesome art going on behind him.
Yeah. So it's still been my hobby for since like January of last year, 2022, AI art. And it's like this thing that it's like a proxy for all things AI for me. Like I'm kind of like leaning more into it at work as need dictate, whenever it hits the day job. But when it doesn't, like I'm trying to figure out how to make cool things, pretty things, neat things.
Okay, how does it work? Like I have a friend who was kind of telling me like some of the inputs and this is what you get out. But like I think this is becoming something like learning how to use AI as part of our jobs as a asset to make us more effective is like what we need to do to stay relevant. And so I am very curious. I keep putting it off. Like I'll learn about that later. I'll learn about that later. Hal, teach me about that.
Okay, I will.
How do you generate an art? And would you consider yourself an artist?
Oh, okay. I didn't know you were going to go there.
I went there.
Yes, I do. I think about this a lot, actually. Like I grew up not thinking I was creative. I thought that I had no creativity. That's how I grew up. And into my adulthood, that was kind of my mind frame.
Poor child.
Which, no, like seriously, think about it. Like that's not, it's like you're cutting off a piece of a potential that you could have. But I knew that I had no like visual artistic capabilities with my hands. I can make stick figures and just a little bit beyond that.
I think that's a really interesting word choice, like visual art, because I feel like art, especially for the times when we grew up, art skills were really defined by your capacity to express visually, drawing, play, mold, and not like theatrically or technically. And there is art in everything.
I would say performance art is, well, I mean, that's what we're doing right now. But even that was not something that I thought about, like leaning into or anything like that. So,
but I know that you do video work on the side as kind of a volunteer role with an organization. And I would say even that it's technical, like I'm sure you're lured in by the technical of doing
I was like,
work.
what are you talking about? Oh, yeah. I haven't done that in a little bit, but yeah,
okay.
Being the AV tech guy at my church, that was something that I was doing for quite a while. I haven't done it a little bit, but yeah, that's and
art.
there's creativity to that too, as far as being a cameraman and deciding that how to frame a subject, for example, that gets into photography. And well, let me ask you a question: is photography art?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
And it's a visual art.
Then if you're going there and you understand what photography is, which people understand what photography is,
I shudder to think that AI photography is not an art.
AI art is more like the art of photography than it is some other types of art. It's not the same, but it's similar in the sense that you are the curator who has a mind for design and aesthetics, and you're deciding how to build a scene, arrange things. You didn't create the nature, if you're taking nature photography, you didn't create the nature.
Yeah.
But you captured it, and you can call that art. AI art is pretty similar in some ways.
I never thought about it that way. Even drawing, if I follow your lead here, like, yeah, when you go out and you do photography of nature, of people, whatever, you didn't create those subjects, but you're capturing them in a way that is artistic. And even with drawing, you didn't create the concept of a human, but you drew a human. You can create some abstract things that don't exist in this universe, but both of those connect back to what you're doing with AI art, where you're creating something from a knowledge base of what humans can perceive. be it existing objects in the universe or amalgams of those things.
I don't know what amalgam means, but otherwise, yes, totally agree.
So do you
Well, let me
and
go
I
back
love
to the
this
tech
idea of like,
side though. Like
yeah,
I
right
don't
away.
want to go too much into like one
The
side
argument.
without hitting
Yeah.
the other. Um, you basically you take a model and you give it inputs. And when you give it inputs, it's usually called a prompt. When you click the go button, that's usually called inference. So you are and the models, there's a lot of different kinds of models, and we're talking about AI and ML at this point. This particular one, the one that's most of my, when I think about it, it's called Stable Diffusion. It's the foremost of the open source ones that can do AI art. There's a bunch of different things and there's a bunch of services. Well, guess what? Most of the services, they also use Stable Diffusion on the back
Oh,
end.
really?
Not all of them. Only like DALL-E by OpenAI,
Yeah.
that's their own thing. Um, Bing, the OEM. I mean, this is well known. They use DALL-E behind the scenes, but Midjourney, well, they started way early, but they basically, what I understand is they basically used an earlier version of Stable Diffusion, and they've gotten so proprietary since then. It's definitely their own thing, but you know all the other services with random names, and some of them great and some of them just there, they all use Stable Diffusion. So that's what
So
I
you
use. I run
let
it
me
on my
re
PC.
okay, let me get those terms right. So you take input into a um what did you call the generator? A
Stable Diffusion is the model, but you could
model. So you put
mhm,
inputs into a model and you
mhm,
generate something, which is when you it's almost like bringing it back to photography. Like you're putting subjects, those are your inputs,
mhm,
into a frame, or you're identifying the frame
mhm,
of the shot. You are the model is this platform, and in photography, I guess your brain is the model, and then you generate, like hitting the shutter. You capture that moment,
mhm.
and when it generates, it outputs
Yeah,
something, but it could output multiple things, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, you could make an image. They're usually fairly small, half a megapixel. So, like literally like 1024 pixels on a side is a common one.
Oh, wow.
Um, and then, I mean, if you're looking at the screen, those are looking at my screen, you see that there's a wallpaper kind of image behind me on my Zoom background. And that's, I upscaled it. I changed it to the ratio I wanted. And I said, hey, I need it bigger. Well, the AI knows how to look at that, and there's steps that it can go through to use some of the similar principles and make it bigger.
Oh, so it
But
doesn't come out all pixelated. It actually
right,
re-renders it with higher
exactly,
resolution.
exactly.
Oh, cool.
Which is like crazy fascinating to watch it in action. And I've got a video. I'll have to find it and dig it up, where you see a tile. So a scene of I forget what it was, like some old warehouse with some robots in it, and you can see it going tile by tile. You zooming into this thing that's kind of blurry and indistinct,
Yeah.
and then it's creating detail that makes sense in that one little tile, and then it does that 10 or 100 times or whatever, stitches them all back together, and then it's a bigger image.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I it was announced at Conf that Splunk has some generative AI stuff going on.
Yeah,
And
we've got
I
a
know
lot of things.
yeah, and I think we even talked about it briefly with Robin in the episode we did on site at Conf. It
hmm
would probably be interesting to get one of those one of those folks on
Yeah, they're
board.
gonna be hitting they were talking about a private preview at the time at
Yeah.
.conf, and they'll be hitting a public preview milestone here soon.
Oh, cool.
And I don't know when they're ready to announce their plans for the GA, but that'll come after the public preview. That's usually how we do those
Yeah.
things. So
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, but
Um,
we want to assist people to make better things faster, more efficient, you know, help out the people that are doing the things.
yeah, I like it. I like it. What's been shaking with you in the world of Splunk?
I think we just went through some of it incidentally. Like
Oh,
AI
really?
is one of the things I'm looking at and
Oh,
trying to help people
nice.
with. GDI is the big one though, honestly. Um,
Getting data in.
Getting data in and how customers do that. And I'm blessed to be able to kind of work with product and marketing and some of the others that are, a little bit further out and figure out how to make this make sense to customers. And I'll call out things that don't make sense, and I will tell them, hey, why?
Mm.
Because like in X number of months, I'm representing the folks that are trying to help explain this to customers, make it make sense to me right now.
Mm.
So we go through that process, and hopefully better things come out.
Nice.
Yeah.
Have you been following the Hotel TA beta?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit.
So the
One of
open
my buddies
telemetry.
is that's front and center for him. But yeah, getting Hotel out to people that already have Splunk, right? They already have Splunk Enterprise. They already know how to distribute apps. So it's what a TA is for. Well, we decided for the people that are, kind of like bringing these things together, if getting Hotel out everywhere you need it to be is the problem, here's a way to make that, easier using the technology that you already know and understand, deployment server.
Yeah, I want to play with that. I downloaded the TA a bit and took a peek at it, but I'm looking forward to throwing that down in my lab, seeing how that works.
Throw it down.
Throw down some TA.
Yeah. What else you been up to?
I have gotten really deep on the observer.
Bring it back in.
Microphone went down. I've been getting really deep on the observability stuff, actually. So like metrics, traces, logs. I find that all really interesting. Some interesting things that I've been wrapping my head around, and those are like, I got a great question from a customer. When do I use what product to do what kind of use case? And I think it unpacks this like probably like a bit of a philosophical debate about like what data structure is the best. So the way I think about observability, and I could be wrong here, but the way I think about our observability products is almost like, sure, back in the day, all data was just unstructured. I mean, there was structured data, but like for the most part, machine generated data that was not structured was like all over the place. Some patterns emerged. The concept of a metric came out. Like, hey, what if we know that there's like a name and a value and some attributes about it that describe what generated that? Like that is a pretty ubiquitous kind of structure. Like, cool. Okay, great. Metrics. Hey, Joel.
Yeah.
And then just talking about observability here, I'll wrap this up and then we'll learn more about you, Joel. The other one was traces. Like traces and spans have persisted for a long time. And so the idea of like, well, what if we define a structure for these things and then have a platform that is more optimized for making sense of those things and having out of the box value. Yeah. And so that's where the observability side has been really interesting. And then it brings this question of like, well, when should I have something in as a log and when should I have it in as a trace or a metric? And, what's the best way to optimize around that? And that's been a really exciting adventure for me. So with that, I'll pivot. Mr. Joel Jacob has joined us. Hey, Joel.
Hey.
We were just catching up on some tech stuff while awaiting your arrival.
I call it filling time.
Filling time?
No, don't call it that. No, call catch up.
We always like to catch up before. Yeah. So
how's it going, Joel? Looking good.
Yeah, thanks. I didn't know you guys had started without me.
So yes. No, this is intentional.
This is intentional. We like our guests to walk in on us catching up. So Joel is, for people just listening, Joel's got a really cool looking setup. First off, his color story is like the IBM Aptiva meets the IBM first black PC. Like the tech, like he's got stuff up on the walls. He got the monitors and then like the guitar propped up there. Nice. Yeah. He's got, the server room in the closet back there. It's a very
got some cold blue going on. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Got the ambient lighting and I can't tell the brand of the what's that, your access point at the top there.
Yeah.
Oh, it's actually a Bell. It's the telco in the area. But
yeah.
Oh, that's theirs.
I'm inflicted with those as well.
They get me 3 gigabytes symmetric. So
hey, you cannot complain about that one.
Yeah,
I do enjoy that you left. Oh, I'll just leave this closet door open here with all the technical equipment peeking out.
Yeah, you got the Edge Hub. It's hard to see. You got the Edge Hub there, and it's connected to.
Oh yeah, I see it.
Price switch.
Well, let's jump. Yeah,
What is
let's
that on the
jump.
wall though? Actually,
Oh,
I'm curious about that over your
Which
right
one?
shoulder. Your right
Oh,
shoulder
not
there.
so
not the
actually,
TV.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pegboard. There's a bunch of devices like the Edge Hub that I'll be putting there to kind of show how the Edge Hub can connect to industrial gateways and switches and stuff like that. So
Oh, very cool. This is going to be very
Smart.
hands-on.
Smart.
Okay. So let's start at the top here. Joel, whenever we have a guest, we always like to know your orange story, which is just a silly way that I've mispronounced our origin. How did you end up here at Splunk? So it's a bit about your career, and mostly we want to know what motivates you, what got you kind of driven towards this place in your career.
yeah, it's definitely an interesting journey. So I started um really hands-on on like mechanical side. So I went to school for mechatronics, which in an ideal world you start doing robotics. But when I graduated, robotics wasn't that popular. And you
What was
study
the degree called?
mechatronics engineering.
I think
So
I
what
had
I'm
that Lego
hearing,
set.
well, no, what I'm hearing is showbiz,
Mm.
Chuck E. Cheese, maybe theme parks. Yeah.
Like Transformers, like the
Like the Hall
Tesla
of Presidents.
Optimus bot is like that's like the ideal job, but that wasn't around when I graduated. So you end up like you study mechanical, electrical, and software, and then
Mhm.
everyone kind of just like ends up deciding which of the three they go in, unless you can pull them all together. So I went down the mechanical route. I worked at Lexus doing interior quality control engineering, manufacturing engineering on the RX 350 SUV. So yeah, that's cool. Went to Japan. We launched the vehicle in 2016, and I was like, "This is great, brand new car." And then I did production for a bit, and I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be a little boring if I do this for another few years." So I had an itch, and I switched to Ecobee to do
Ooh.
electronics manufacturing.
I'm
And
sorry, is that how the company's name is pronounced? I've been saying it wrong.
Ecobee. I'm
Okay.
not actually sure.
Oh, okay.
I
They
I
don't
pronounced
tell.
it Ecobee, but like even at the company, I don't think it was like this is how you pronounce it.
Oh,
So
interesting.
yeah, so that was like electronics manufacturing, and compared to automotive, that's all been outsourced, right? So I was in China, Malaysia, Mexico, and realizing how you build electronics. And then that's like, well, how do we compete with Google, who owns Nest, where we're this like small startup based in Toronto? And I learned a bunch of my startup chops there. The company grew while I was there from 100 to 500, think like 100 million in revenue to 500 million revenue before
Wow.
getting acquired by Generac. But during that transition, I learned about like, yeah, let's position ourselves as like the Apple product to compete with Android users. Well, iPhone users don't have something. So we got Siri on the device, and I started thinking about strategy. And then 2 years ago, this kind of brings to the point of how do I get to Splunk? I got approached, and I had never heard of the name Splunk before. And they said, "Hey, we have customers. We're trying to get data in from industrial sources. You've worked in that space. Seems like they need some sort of hardware software solution to get it in. You've built in that space. I think this would be a great fit for you." And at first I was like, I don't know about Splunk. This like Ecobee thing seems pretty fun. And I started researching it and had more informal conversations, and said, okay, might as well put my hat in the ring. I joined 2 years ago, and I was like, oh my gosh, what have I done? But
In
it's
a good
been,
way, in a good way.
yeah, in a good way. Just you, for
He's
me, it's been,
reconsidering his life choices right now. I
Yeah.
think is what I'm hearing.
Well, I blame Nexus. If you didn't go there, you wouldn't have ended up here.
yeah,
Alexis, yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. If you look actually, even though Splunk is a big company, I've gone from like large enterprise to startup to now this is like it was a scrappy small team, like one pizza size, that adage of like how many pizzas do you have to feed your development team? So it's like one pizza size team, let's build something. So I got that true startup feel, and somehow we convinced, Gary and all the executives and the board, and we were on the .conf main stage, so it's been one crazy journey.
So
So
go ahead, Hal.
I was just gonna say, so you're at a software company making hardware. I'm imagining that there were a lot of minds that you had to change, or assumptions that you might have had to, you know, reset. What are some of those that you kind of got past by this point, right? Because we did a launch, you got to talk about it on the main stage and so forth. Looking back, what were some of the highlights there?
Yeah, I think so. The hardware software was like one challenge, and the other is like even a completely different domain compared to security and IT. We're really focused at operational efficiency, like making things more efficiently, which isn't our primary market, but we can also sell security and observability on top of that. It's maybe I could reframe it. It's like observability for the industrial equipment, right? Which allows you to build better and more efficiently. So that was one challenge. And that was something we had to flip. And we did that by partnering with the partner team. So it's like, hey, we will go through domain experts who actually sell Splunk today, but they also know this new industrial domain. And that will allow us to more easily sell into the space versus educating and re-educating our whole and distracting even our whole sales force. On the hardware software side, to your question, what I think is interesting about a lot of, let's say, call them hardware companies, is there is a software that runs typically on the device, the embedded software. So on iPhones, that's iOS and stuff like that. So we do have, we call it Edge Hub OS, which is where a lot of the value and magic happens. And on the hardware side, how we structured it is we're actually not designing a really customized hardware. We're taking a lot of off-the-shelf components. We're getting them vertically integrated, but what we're doing there is just providing thought leadership on the hardware side and saying, for our software to really shine, this is what we need. And if you look in the market, it's not readily available. So like one example is Edge AI. So to really run like AI on the edge on a small compact device, CPUs, they're not good. How do we get a device that can support that computation? Okay, here's NXP. They have a NPU, neural processing unit. Now we can run AI models and do it 20 times faster. So that's really the secret sauce, is like saying our point of value is a software. We're still a software company, but we are, taking that thought leadership and saying, what do you need to make a successful edge solution?
So I want to appreciate what you just said there, because it's like, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think what you're explaining is like the Edge Hub device, the physical device itself. It's not like, oh, we created our own processor and like it's our own proprietary, like hardware that we've innovated because like we need to do bizarre things like crunch Bitcoin or whatever. It's like, no, these are actually things like people theoretically could do by piecing together all the stuff all over the place. But like for you to get value out of your data and like add that lens onto like the other data you already have in the platform or whatever, and get those use cases, this is the right collection, that thought leadership of like, this is the right collection of hardware and we've packaged it together so it's a turnkey solution for you. You don't have to piece it together. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
exactly
cool.
what I'm getting at. So I think, like explaining that to people at Splunk helped address any concerns around like, we're not making a massive like hardware team, and we're not like Apple to be like, hey, this is the A14 Bionic. We don't have a massive like engineering team. We're just picking, what's there, but also making it easier for our customers to implement it. And that's what the challenge is like. Typically, if you leave this to an end customer, now they have to go and research like all this hardware stuff that they may not have the background with, then integration. But if we kind of take that effort away and make it easy to be like, just run Splunk and use this, get the data in, it allows people to get value from their environments and data a lot faster.
That's smart. Okay. So maybe we should stop for a second and say, you know what they might not have, the people listening, they might not have gone to a conf, they might not have seen some of the material. Why don't you give us the quick version of what Edge Hub is, and we'll kind of build on that.
What is this, Joel? What is this?
There you go.
You brought a prop.
A nice LED ring. So when thinking back to my days working as a manufacturing engineer, there would be a problem with cars coming off the line, and it'd be like, okay, you need to solve this right now. And if you don't solve this right now, there's going to be like millions of dollars in inventory that's spoiled and gets reworked. And so I needed data to make the decisions to either tune a machine or, you know, get the line back running and figure out what was going on. And it was very hard to get that data. I remember like going to the factory floor and plugging in my laptop and then like running some archaic enterprise software, which like was really hard to navigate and then pull that data. And what go ahead.
Joel, that's so brilliant. Like, it's just like our customers. I might be jumping the gun, but like, just like our customers who are like, I could look in a log file on my like application server and I see like one granular thing, but I don't know what that means. Like, if I just like plug in and I'm looking at this, but like assembly line is like things at scale. When something's slightly off at scale, it makes a huge impact, but you won't notice it from that one. And
Yeah.
so,
And
like,
it
I love
might
this.
not be connected to an IP network at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. So I
So
mean, we're doing what we've kind of done with the IT world, but now we're doing an OT, which is maybe even more challenging. So
yeah, sorry, I paused you there. Keep going.
no worries. Yeah. So what happened in the industry is, you know, a lot of people will talk about this term industry 4.0. How do we connect these unconnected devices? How do we get data out? And over, I would say the past, let's say decade where IoT was becoming a big thing, but it really hasn't like fully hit. People are like, what
IoT?
yeah,
Industrial.
industrial IoT, Internet of Things.
Internet of Things.
Or let's just say IoT has been like big, but it hasn't really hit because you need the IT domain expertise, you need the OT, operational technology domain expertise of like what the equipment does, and then you need like the embedded engineering of like how do I code and develop stuff on a limited resource device, which is like so many domain expertise that a lot of people kind of just get stuck or can't partner with the right people. But the traction that was made is like, hey, there's some middleware you can install, get a server and like install on the server or install on a Windows PC. And people are, you know, still pushing through. So it was still challenging. And kind of back to the point of the question, like, well, what is the Edge Hub? We basically took that multiple domain expertise, multiple pieces of software and equipment, and just vertically integrated into a nice, compact, passively cooled, IP rated industrial device that you can just throw in, you know, to a network closet, to the factory floor. It has cellular backhaul if you don't want to connect it to your network, or you connect it to Ethernet, Wi-Fi, has Bluetooth. It's a bunch of functionality, kind of like a little Swiss Army knife, and it allows you to break that log jam and get that data in.
By the way, can your tagline be Joel Jacob, passively cooled?
Passively cool. Yeah, yeah. I think it's suitable.
I'm such a chill guy. I'm just passively cooled.
You gotta keep a calm head in these tough times.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So we have this device out now. What have
Can you
Yeah.
call 1-800-Splunk and buy it? What were the
Right.
types of things that we were showing off at the conference just a couple months ago at the user conference, and what's kind of like taking off and getting the traction?
Yeah, and like I mentioned earlier, we are going through partners. So where you go to buy it if you are interested to like figure out what this is, www.edgehubcentral.com.
Didn't want to go with Edge Hub.
Edge Hub, the hub of hubs.
Yeah.
It's missed opportunities here.
The mom of moms. Yeah.
So what you'll see on that website is our master distributor, and they have a bunch of partner built solutions. So I think what's cool is like you toss this Edge Hub in your environment as a customer, you can configure it, you can get data in, but you may not know how to take that data and build like a useful value prop and ROI and say, hey, this actually allows me to replace this machine at a good interval so I can save millions of dollars every year. Well, we have a partner who focused on a specific use case, specific robots for specific verticals like automotive or oil and gas or retail groceries, where there are nuanced domain expertise. This is kind of like our market front for that. You go there and you can kind of pick and choose these different solutions. So at .conf, we had a Edge Hub zone where these partners showed a bunch of different solutions that they had built.
So it's like, rather than reinventing the wheel, just like the device is like, you could piece this together yourself, but here's the value add. It's already packaged for you. Here's the best of breed of what you're going to want to use. And then just like that, the partners are like, yo, we already work in automotive. We'll show you how people get value out of this and what the good use cases are. And so they help drive that. By the way, go ahead.
I'm hearing the pattern here emerge of who's done this in the industry in the past and how did that pan out. And my first thought was Microsoft with the Surface, which I don't know if y'all remember, like it didn't work the first time. They went with ARM before ARM was ready for Microsoft's own platform, ironically. And it had a content problem. And they actually stuck with it. They after a huge write-off, if I recall. And then the Surface hardware division, which aside from the Xbox, which was very, very separate, different, buyers entirely, obviously as consumer, they do have a laptop and a tablet, slate kind of thing going on. I don't know about the bottom line about how like significant it is to Microsoft, but like they kept at that. And the thing, it's basically, hey, we're inspiring the ecosystem of hardware manufacturers and software manufacturers that weren't going in the direction that we felt that we really needed to show off. So maybe that's what we're doing here.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. There's a lot of people, big tech customers or companies have done that. Like Google, they had the Nexus product line, and they're like, hey, we made this handset, and then we like got rid of that, and then it was just let to the manufacturers, and it was kind of like, oh, how do we actually compete with Apple, who's making this AI on their like custom silicon? Oh my gosh, we got to do like TensorFlow. And then eventually they're like, okay, well, let's come back out with Pixel to really show people what can be done from a software point of view. And that's, the same sort of concept of like, we're providing that direction, and really the platform. And, internally at Splunk, we're under the platform side of the company. And I know there's like been an ongoing debate in Splunk customers, is like Splunk a platform or is it like a product? And I think it really depends on your use case. But for us, we're really trying to be that platform where people can install and create apps on and kind of use that extensibility to do more with Splunk.
What kind of two questions that are somewhat related but don't sound like it. What we talked about the Edge Hub itself. What sensors are on it? And then the second question, and maybe this is just where the conversation goes, is like, so like the customers who are kind of those early adopters that have been using this, I'm curious, like how many devices do they typically have, like based on the sensor sensitivity, and like what are they looking at? With that.
Yeah. So one of the things we were able to do in like picking the off-the-shelf stuff is say that we want sensors packaged into this device. So right out of the box, you have temperature, humidity, ambient light sensing. You have stereo microphones, which right now is used for loudness, but you could look at different sound patterns and use Edge AI. More on that later. We have pressure. We have accelerometer and gyroscope. We even have a gas sensor that looks at VOCs, volatile organic components, and can give you like, there is also AI for that, where you can actually say, based on these readings, we think it's this type of gas.
Oh,
and you can start isolating gases. There's a lot of untapped potential here.
Or can you go down to the detail that you would maybe be able to sequence the DNA of the person who just let gas out?
Oh,
there's a
sounds useful.
You plug in a camera to the USB port, and you might be able to detect their facial reactions in the room.
That's the scatological API.
Yes, that's a good one. Okay.
Yeah.
So people ask me actually, like, well, why did you include a bunch of these sensors, right? And
sorry, before that, but that's the sensors that come with it. I'm assuming you can extend upon that.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So when you put one of these in your environment, The real value and strategy of having these sensors is the immediate power it on, and you can quickly get some value out of it, right? And the incremental cost, especially at scale, of including these sensors is marginal. So it really doesn't cost us much more from a BOM point of view,
Mhm.
bill of materials point of view, to actually add these sensors. But the value a customer has gotten from even our like beta deployments is like, I can actually see based on the ambient temperature and vibration that the environment is getting worse. They're like, I need to dispatch someone out there.
Mhm.
Or I can see that we're not shutting off the lights, very trivial thing, but has a real dollar impact when people are out of the room or the factory using the light sensor. So yeah, the cost benefit ratio of just including those built-in sensors is really valuable, and it allows people to see very quickly like the power of Splunk. But to the point Birch you made earlier is we've actually designed this to be extensible. Actually, the whole point is to connect with industrial equipment and already deployed industrial sensors and infrastructure. So we speak industrial protocols. The two kind of popular big ones are MQTT, which is like more for IoT, and OPC which is I think led by Microsoft and a bunch of other people, but that's like the standard protocol that a lot of suppliers are also supporting. But at a even deeper level, there's Profinet or Modbus or BACnet, and most of those people will support OPC on top. So we'll also support even those like lower level protocols. And the whole point of that is to support industrial sensors that are out there that might be designed for oil and gas because it's explosion proof. So just like buy the sensors that are out there and then connect it to the Edge Hub and scale.
Oh, so like if I'm a gas whatever, and I already have sensors for safety and everything, you're saying this device, you can connect them to this device. It was designed with that intention. And
Yeah.
now you've been able to create a hub for sending data in from the edge.
There you go. Yeah, some good naming actually panning out.
Yeah.
And
So it's kind of like a bridge between different networks, or a collector or concentrator of many things into a point at which you can say, okay, cool. Now I'm going to bring it up to my analytics platform or something like
exactly.
that.
I'm such a nerd. It makes me think of like a universal forwarder that comes with a bunch of like inputs already deployed, like, oh, it's got the Linux TA like on there, and it's got all these like monitor inputs, and like, yeah, you're not, and it's going to forward the data along. You're not monitoring files, you're monitoring physical, and it is going to forward that data along.
Mhm.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
So
that's
how
like
is it
that.
different than our clients? I mean, we have clients like the forwarder that or OTel, we were talking about that before you joined. They collect data. Is conceptually, at least, it's kind of fits in that space?
Yeah, I would say so. I think that's the right analogy to go with is like, 10 years ago we were going into IT, and it's like, how do we connect all these disparate systems? Now we're trying to do that in the operational technology world, except there's an added challenge of it feels like even more fragmented, and even equipment that you have to connect. How do you do that? And how do you send it, right? And do you use a forwarder from Splunk, or what we've done is actually using Heck, the HTTP event collector. But like I mentioned, this is a platform product, so we actually have the OTel collector also running on the Edge Hub, and now you can plug this straight into observability and send that data in. So we have some partners who are like,
Ooh.
yeah, we're all in on Ollie, and that's where they're choosing to send the data, because
Okay.
it's optimized for metrics and stuff. So, and we have another partner who is actually putting a forwarder on it, a universal forwarder. So
Huh.
On the edge hub.
on the Edge Hub. So we have a version, I believe, for ARM, that's
Oh,
running
Yeah.
right now. So
So that
more
gets
to
into
come.
the question that I want to go to, and I've got props to you. I know you've got an Edge Hub, both of you do, and I had to give mine away. But all right, so my props are going to be this. I've got an MCU. This is probably like an 8060 A266 maybe. This is a Raspberry Pi Zero, and this is I forget, this is a Raspberry Pi 3, or it might be a kind of work alike. But you
Yeah.
know, what level of hardware are we doing here, and what are kind of the the high level kind of capabilities that you can get out of that, and why one of these, as opposed to a server.
Yeah. So I think I'm thinking all of them are ARM based, right? And I think
Except for the
yeah,
MCU, which is that's like a, what would you compare that to?
Well,
Adreno.
that's the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right?
Microcontroller unit versus SBC, single board computers. That's the term that I like to throw around sometimes.
single board computers. Yeah. So I mean, all of these were really resource constrained, and I think that's the goal. Like even if you look at our device, at peak we consume I think like 30 watts. So it's less than a light bulb, right? Or incandescent at least. So I think it's like I know
I'm pretty sure I just replaced some LEDs that with some LEDs that are lower.
But that's
than that.
low power. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like it's low power, and then getting high value out of that, right? And then also like the reliability. So that's an interesting thing. So we can connect with those ESP32s or 8266 that you show. People actually will like use those. But now it's like, how do you design that with the resiliency to put it in on a boat where you have to have some sort of enclosure, right? And then how do you make sure you update the firmware if there are security issues and stuff like that? So that's where we've basically taken those like single board computers. This is what's actually inside is an NXP one, and we've added that layer of security support and like the operating system, and just like management of like, hey, from your Splunk instance now you can control a fleet of these, right? Versus like with those you have to develop that architecture to like manage all your connected devices, IoT devices.
So what is, when they purchase this is something that, it sounds like what you said, manage. It's going to be a managed device. It's going to have the life cycle of the software and maybe even the firmware managed by Splunk or the partner.
Yeah, managed by Splunk or the partner. We post out releases, almost every month, and that just adds and unlocks more functionality, and also addresses like security concerns that may come out, that if you have a vulnerability on this MCU, this ESP MCU, are you going to know how to deploy that and package that and then get that back to the edge, versus like, hey, I'm trusting Splunk to be on top of that, which I think we have a good reputation to stand on. So that again, like when you're solving these edge solutions, there's so many different domains that it just takes the stress off to know that you just have to focus on your line of business, domain specific use case, and everything else kind of gets managed as part of the solution.
So I know that you just hit a milestone, recently at .conf. I don't know yet. Are you at the point where we have customer stories or partner stories that we can name and go into some of that level of detail?
Then okay, so we do have customer stories. We, as you mentioned, .conf was our America LAR, limited availability release. We're going into Europe and APAC this November, so we're actually expanding into a bunch of countries, and
the reason is very interesting. Why is this not just released globally at the same time, sir?
I guess part of the complications of hardware devices, you have to have certifications per country. So America is the easiest to do, FCC, we know that process. Now we actually take the same test data and you repackage it and maybe do an additional one test for a country because they want one particular thing. So that is happening through our manufacturer who's like processing that. And then
I love the idea that there's like in like Europe, there's like a black market. Like you go into a dark alley and somebody, you want an
Edge Hub?
You want an Edge Hub? Like these ain't legit on the market yet, but they're still good. They open up their trench coat, they've got it like sagging down with Edge Hubs.
I mean, in the beta, it almost felt like that, but we have the CE mark in Europe and stuff like that too. Yeah. So I think that's one part of the coin, and the other is like you need the partners to get ramped up in each region. So it's like,
yeah, because this is like physical. Like you're ideally going to want partners who can be boots on the ground, as they say.
Yeah,
right?
like, hey, yeah, let's install it and deploy it, and if like anything goes wrong, we can like swap it out with an RMA So we kind of like are building up those teams across the world, right? So that's why we're just only getting to Asia in the next month, not yet. But part of the reason we're really pushing forward is like one partner that was mentioned on our last earnings call actually took the Edge Hub, and I don't think I can name the name yet, but they've taken the Edge Hub and they put it on a manufacturing line, and then running Edge AI, they actually reduced defects by 70%
Oh my
and
gosh.
improved quality for that particular operation. So, but if you're doing like, millions of parts, this is a
huge.
multi-million
That's
dollar
huge.
savings, right? So,
So
Wow.
one of the first conversations, this is so arrogant of me. One of my first conversations with Joel, I was telling him, we were talking about like creative stuff with Edge Hub, and I was like I always think of I gotta remember the name of this book. I'll tell it by the end. But it's all about like assembly lines and stuff. And so like I pictured this assembly line where like they think everything's honky dory and they're doing fine and whatever. But then they just notice like around noon or something, like the quality starts to like they have more defects and they don't understand why the widgets have more defects, right? And they're just like, I don't know, something happens around noon, right? But at scale, they start to realize, oh, this is a big deal. And this is a story like I fabricated in my mind, inspired by this book. I think it's called Goal. I'll look it up. But
the goal.
the goal, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and so like now enter the Edge Hub, and now it's sensing like vibration, and like what you realize is that thanks to the Edge Hub, you've unlocked this solution that, oh, around noon every day, that's when the raw materials come in, and the vibration of the trucks unloading and everything is just enough to make the widget manufacturing to be slightly off and increase the defects. And so like shifting your strategy there has allowed you to like unlock all this other potential, right? But for me, it was that, oh my gosh, I love that this device can get us data at scale. We can't notice as humans these minor perceptions or vibrations. But with technology, we can plug this in, forward it, analyze it at scale, and see correlations that we never could see. So that's my fake story of that I told Joel of like, this is what I dream is possible with this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
The
goal.
goal was actually a really good book. And I think, yeah, one of the most valuable things I learned in my career is how do you take concepts from one industry, abstract them enough, and then transfer it to another industry, right? And I think that really allows you to have these models of the world that allow you to kind of scale yourself, right? And
Plug
learn faster.
plug for that book. So it's The Goal by Eliyahu Goldratt. And honestly, like it's about assembly lines, but it's kind of about life. Like
Well,
Yeah.
if you're
it
gonna
changes your
plug
look
that,
on the life on life.
if you're gonna plug that, I'm gonna go backwards a step to how I
Oh,
found about the goal, which was through the Phoenix project,
oh
which
wow, that's
many in the IG industry and especially DevOps type of folks, they've read that book by Gene Kim and his cohorts. They took learnings from the goal and put it in the fictional narrative of the Phoenix project.
Yeah,
which
actually,
then inspired the Hunger Games. No,
Exactly.
I mean, this is something that's been interesting for me when people talked about, Kanban and stuff like that.
yeah.
I'm like, wait, what do you mean Kanban? Like, when I hear Kanban, I think of a screen on a factory floor that tells you
Mhm.
how many pieces are at each stage. And it's like, oh, no, no. In the
Yes.
software, we took that concept and we're
Mhm.
like looking at workflow, but it's actually software work. And I'm
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, all of these principles that I kind
Mhm.
of learned from the industrial world are like used in the software world. And that's how DevOps and all of these things got to such a proficient level. And it's almost like, okay, now we got to take some of those learnings and bring them back
Isn't that funny?
to the industrial world. Yeah.
Well, it's like servers, virtual machines, physical machines, containers, like these like design paradigms like that they keep like going away and coming back.
Okay, so
Uh
here's an
yeah.
interesting, maybe hot take, but I'll say that like on
Hot
a
take.
Mac.
Hold on. We got our theme song. Hot take with Joel Jacob. All right, let's hear your hot take.
So if you think on a macro level, and I don't know, this is back to the how many times do you think about the Roman Empire, but I think about what's going on with the world and what we've done in the West with America is we outsourced a lot of this electronics manufacturing. We outsource a lot of manufacturing, and a lot of our talent has gone into technology. And if you look at the top 5 worth companies in the world, they're all US based, they're tech companies. Like that's where we put all of our collective intellect into pushing society forward. And what we've done is like we've not focused as much on the industrial world. And it's almost like there's this gap that as we start reshoring or onshoring or nearshoring, we're able to like transfer that intellect back into. So I think we're going to see significant leaps in building things better by taking a lot of the knowledge that we've learned in the tech world and now transferring it. And I think we need to, without so we don't like, inflate the prices of all these goods to a point that we can't afford them.
Well, I feel like now this is the third book being plugged today, so it's called The World is Flat. And it really provides a lot of depth on what you were just talking about. So a lot of work that could be done cheaper elsewhere, eventually it actually becomes more expensive. Their quality of living goes up, inflation goes up, and then you have to find the new market where that's produced. And eventually the playing field is flat amongst all the countries. And so to your point, it actually will hit a point where it behooves us to assemble things locally, because now the transport costs and all the fringe costs in total with even slightly cheaper product cost more than if we just did it locally.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you just keep hopping around in the free market globally on where to produce these things. Yeah, The World is Flat is a very
Cool.
enlightening book on some of those paradigms you're talking about.
Very cool.
I'm thinking of like where to go and where not to go. I mean, like you have hardware that led to, and we talked about this story here, and I'm thinking, okay, what are the paradigms that are going back and forth? And you mentioned virtual machines, Birch, and containers, and I'm thinking about the mainframe, which in a real sense never really died, never really went away. Those that know that there's banks and government agencies and so forth that have plenty of that, but it really never went away because conceptually the cloud is the new mainframe. So when you're consuming something as a service, paying by the hour or the minute or the second, that's mainframe billing of a thing. Yeah. And there's things that are good and there's things that are bad, and I don't know where the future of that will go. But like, how do we basically, how do we show the customer the things that are important and that they want to pay for that? Like, okay, yeah, you're going to charge me this many pennies to do that, and I'm going to save millions. Oh yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I think the cloud, Birch, I just want to say one thing on the cloud edge, like TikTok almost, where it's like, things moved to centralization and then they moved to decentralization. We kind of like seesaw back and forth as we go to these like local optima and optimize them to a point and say like, well, there's actually more value if we can do that distributedly at the edge and we don't have to send everything to a mainframe. But then it's like, well, if you do it on a mainframe, you can actually like join all these resources and like do something at a more efficiently. So I think what Splunk's done is really smart in having this hybrid approach where we can basically say like, for this unique use case for this application, this is actually what makes more sense for you, for your needs and your customer profile and everything. So I think we've done really well at that. And, on AI, this is actually also happening where you're getting to LLMs and generative AI, and the CTO, Mira Murati, was asked like, hey, do we think that in the future, like all these models are just going to like be one big model? Or do we think there's going to be like distributed models? And she was saying like, the jury's still out, but there are economical reasons that you would want to take something, optimize it, and put it at the edge to do one goal, right? So we will see. And I think ultimately we want to provide customers that optionality.
I think I thought of this sort of analogy just to kind of put a button on the like things being cheaper or like what model, distributed or centralized and stuff, like food stores. Have you gone to the exact same food store your entire life for every single product? No. Because another food store might offer some of those things cheaper. Maybe something opens up that's closer, so it's more convenient. So even in our hyper local purchasing decisions, we make change. Now I'm going to do Instacart, or I'll buy something on Amazon because it's like a dry good. So we make those types of decisions on a day-to-day basis that maybe they go away, and then now actually I could get this cheaper back in the store. And the same thing happens on the macro environment, centralized stuff. Well, there's certain factors and reasons why that behooves us to be the best approach, and then it becomes decentralized and more specific, and then like re-centralized. Like we will forever oscillate in all of these things based on the circumstances and the environment that make things more opportunistic or more efficient for us, and we'll make those choices based on what's best. Joel, pivoting, ready? And we're going to turn this truck around. That's me turning the steering wheel. You mentioned pegboard, and you got me thinking you were going to put some stuff on there, and you've got a really cool dashboard behind you on the monitor that's set to auto scroll down and up. What was there something you were interested in showing us there?
I don't have anything prepped. I mean, what you see,
okay.
What you see on the screen, just to like for any viewers, I don't know if you do audio and visual, but
we do both of them.
Yeah. So this is it's Splunk TV. It is actually showing the data from the Edge Hub in my home network closet there. And then what I do have is there's a bunch of these, and just so these are like other industrial devices. This has
He's holding up other industrial devices for people listening.
This one is like Advantech. It has a bunch of terminal pins because
it looks like a walkie-talkie.
Has an antenna. You can connect this to Edge Hub. This is like we mentioned, one of those things you would connect. So what I'm planning on putting on that pegboard is a bunch of customers and partners that we work with, whether they're like Rock, Siemens PLCs or Advantech sensors or IFM, have that there to really show that extensibility, but also kind of two birds with one stone, start monitoring my HVAC room for leaks and just tinker away for a real use case for me, but also shows the extensibility that we have.
I might want to work with you on that use case, the HVAC leaks, because that's one of my potential use cases that I wanted to play with Edge Hub. What I'm going to ask the dumb question: what's a pegboard?
This is IKEA. You just put it on the wall, you put some pegs on it, and you can hang stuff.
So, it's so.
But the relevance to the manufacturing part is that you have to think about the hardware and where is somebody going to put this thing?
That's like a store for like what you'd find in a convenience store, like that type of pegboard, like where you have put literally the little peg.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought pegboard, it's like a powered panel, and you plug things in, and then you don't have to plug them in, and it's like I thought it was like a more advanced. It looks really cool.
I mean, it looks very nice. It looks like some sort of futuristic heating cooling unit or something like that.
Yeah, it's like what's
it does look cool, but just to look at the rest of the room there, you've got an equipment rack behind you. You've been talking about these closets at sites. It can, an Edge Hub could go in there, but that might not be the right place for it. They might need to have it other places.
Yeah, so we had to think about mounting, like you mentioned. So we have a DIN rail mount. DIN rail is what you kind of see in industrial cabinets. It's like a 1-inch piece of sheet metal that's extruded that you want to snap on. So we have a mounting adapter for that. We got to think about these things. I got to be mounting that and making sure that the customers who actually deploy it, our partners or customers, aren't going to get frustrated at that point. Same with the IT guys. We got a 0U and 1U mounting options. So you could actually put this in front of your switches and not take up any space, or you can put them in line. But that's something we had to consider. So I think, it's just the detail-oriented aspects that you need to think about to be successful when you have a physical product.
I know this is more meant for businesses and industrial. The fact that you have a device in your closet there, I brought mine up from the closet. What are some at-home use cases that our listeners who might not be in that space can kind of relate to more with the at-home things? Have people done interesting things using Edge Hub at home?
Yeah, I think we've seen. This is the power of Splunk. Is there's a lot of Splunkers who love tinkering at stuff. So we have someone who put it in his Tesla, and as you're taking turns, you're seeing the acceleration and G-force get recorded. You can connect in the OBD2 protocol, which is actually how cars communicate their error codes,
The onboard
troubleshoots.
diagnostics.
There you go. Yeah, I didn't remember what it worked in automotive. Completely forgot what that
I
stood for.
I made the app for Automatic, which was a consumer OBD dongle, and so I spent many years saying ODB, which is a wrapper or was a wrapper.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. So like people like they want to know, they see an error code pop up in the car. It's like, oh, I can only clear it by going to a mechanic. Well, plug this in, so get it sent to your Edge Hub, get it sent into Splunk, and hopefully someone like you can build an app around that, right? Or the HVAC closet, or even like leaks in general. There are a bunch of smart home devices, um, but enterprise companies need to deploy similar solutions, but they can't use consumer tech really because it doesn't scale. So you can buy enterprise grade leak rope, and that can send data to the Edge Hub. And now you know if you have leaks. So I mean, I've had this a couple times in my HVAC room where it wasn't draining properly, and as a byproduct of like creating heat is actually like water, and something was happening with the pipe, and it was like just kind of squirted all over the room and stuff like that. So I had like mold then after on one of the
Oh
walls.
no.
Yeah, so things like that. I mean, one person was putting it in like a wine cellar and tracking like
Ooh, humidity.
humidity and temperature and stuff like that. So similarly with an attic and all of those type of spaces, like temperature is a pretty good one.
I thought you said attic, not attic.
No.
It's my Canadian.
No, I love all the creative stuff. I mean, like there's
Yeah.
just lots of outside the box things because we're outside of the box. We're outside of the server. You know, this is connecting to the real world. Everybody's got something that they can think of there. So it kind of like helps, you know, make it real, which is neat. Now, I hate to do this. But we are running out of time and we're going to have to say goodbye to Joel perhaps. So, anything that you kind of like leave people with on
Yeah, or something you want us
what's
to look
next?
forward to.
Look forward to. Yeah. Okay, so we launched 3 months ago. Um and how do I say this? Like there's a bunch of things in the pipeline that are coming out that will build off of this functionality, right? I think, if for any listener who knows, Splunk did try to kind of break into the IoT market years ago, with some sort of software solution. And actually, the problem was like, well, how do you get data in? So, hey, now we've actually gone and solved that problem and getting data in. But now you still have this problem where it's like, well, you need to like organize that data on Splunk. So there is more software that's coming out from our partners, and they've been building cool stuff. We're building cool stuff. We also have like another product that is out there that we've been thinking of how to pivot it a little bit better, Splunk AR, where you can now walk into a factory and your edge hubs will be able to project this data to you on your mobile or headset, and you could see everything now in augmented reality. I could quote unquote zoom you in and you could actually see what's wrong with my machine and tell me how to fix it. So there's that angle for detection from the Edge Hub, investigation response from Splunk Web, Splunk AR, whatever you need to help you be more effective and bring down that MTTR. So yeah, we have lots more products coming out. I'm really excited, and what I think will be even cooler is coming back on this pod a year and talking about the community that's been building stuff like the automatic app that you mentioned, Birch. That would be really great to showcase, and I can't wait to talk about that.
Awesome.
Very cool. Well, we look forward to. I don't know that we've had return guests, but we've definitely
We've
find
had
this stuff.
a couple.
Yeah,
I re-invited myself.
yeah.
There
I
we
like
go.
that.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming and spend time with us, and it's super fascinating, and I love it because it's just so new and different than some of the other things that we're doing. So breaking new ground, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, stay tuned for also a bunch of AI stuff. I think that's gonna be cool. We got containers coming too. Yeah, there's a laundry list of features. So trying to figure out how to communicate that best. And podcasts are a great medium.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, thanks so much, Joel. Thanks to all of our listeners, and we'll catch you at the next episode. Take care. Bye.
See ya.